You grow up in Sonora, in a city that runs on two things: federal money and whatever moves through the desert at night. Your father was a civil engineer who built roads and never asked who paid for them. You learn early that the question isn't whether the money is clean. The question is whether the paperwork is. You study law. You join the party at 23, work a senator's office for 4 years, learn where the real decisions happen and who makes them. You win your first seat at 30. You win your second at 34. The third campaign is different. The party pulls its funding in March. A rival has locked down the regional machine. Your polling numbers drop 8 points in 6 weeks. You are losing to a man you know is worse than you, and you are losing cleanly, which turns out to be the problem. A fixer you've seen at 3 different fundraisers sits down across from you. He represents the Sinaloa Cartel. The meeting is in a private room at the back of a restaurant in Hermosillo. No windows. The noise from the main floor is exactly loud enough. The man across from you is not what you expected. Sport coat, no tie, the kind of calm that comes from having done this before. He asks about your campaign first. The polling gap? The funding shortfall? Which districts are soft? And he listens the way a diagnostician listens, interested in the problem, not the politics. He lays out the arrangement in 15 minutes. The cartel wants a senator who controls the infrastructure committee, who can shape port authority appointments in Sonora and Sinaloa, who has a productive relationship with the attorney general's office. Not loyalty, not friendship, alignment. In exchange, campaign financing through a construction company in Culiacan. The 3 districts in the north where the ground operation moves in your direction, enough to close 8 points before the final month. He asks if you have questions. You ask one. He answers it without hesitation, which tells you he has answered it many times before. You say you need to think. He says of course. He picks up the check. The money arrives 11 days later, not cash. Invoices from a construction firm for consulting services your campaign never performed. Processed through an account your treasurer sets up in a single morning. It looks like every other donation you have ever received. That is the point. The mechanism is so clean it barely feels like a decision. You tell yourself everyone in that building has already made some version of this deal, that you are not beginning something. You are catching up. You win by 6 points. The margin feels earned. That's the part that should worry you. For 18 months, the arrangement is nearly invisible and the work is real. You push a highway expansion through committee that Sonora has needed for a decade. A rural hospital in Cajeme gets its funding restored, and not as a favor, just as the right vote at the right time. A water treatment project in Guaymas that stalled for 4 years starts moving. People in your home state call your office with problems, and your office solves some of them. Your party mentions you in the same breath as a cabinet position. Deputy Minister of Interior. Maybe more, depending on the cycle. There is one afternoon you'll keep returning to later. An infrastructure ceremony in a small town outside Hermosillo. A highway overpass opening. Local officials, photographers, a brass band playing slightly off-tempo in the heat. You cut the ribbon and a woman in the crowd shouts your name like you've done something that actually mattered to her. And for a moment, the noise and the dust and the flat Sonoran light are exactly what politics promised to be when you were 23 and reading files in a senator's office, men on a stage with something real to show for it. The cartel asks for almost nothing at first. A customs inspection commander gets a favorable review from a ministry contact. A single infrastructure contract, road resurfacing, 3 counties, 4.2 million pesos, goes to a firm out of Culiacan whose ownership you don't look up. A committee hearing on port security gets rescheduled twice. Small, each one deniable on its own. Your wife, Elena, chairs a foundation that funds literacy programs in rural Sonora. The foundation is real. Not 2 additional accounts nested inside it are not, and she doesn't know they exist. At a party function, the fixer shakes your hand at the edge of the room. Quietly, almost in passing, he says they're proud of what you've built. He says it the way a manager says it to a reliable employee. You move on. You don't think about the sentence again for a long time. The second year ends. The asks change in scale. The second meeting is not in a restaurant. 9th floor, a law firm's conference room in Polanco, view of the Reforma. The fixer is not there. The man across the table is older, quieter, and gives only a first name you will never verify. He has a leather portfolio. He speaks the way a regional director speaks to a department head who has been performing adequately but is now needed for something larger. The cartel wants distribution routes through Sonora, Sinaloa, and Chihuahua protected by something more durable than individual payments. Legislative infrastructure. You chair the committee that controls federal law enforcement budget allocations across the northern states. That committee can redirect resources, slow an investigation, bury a line item inside a 200-page amendment. You are told which judge in Hermosillo to call, which federal prosecutor in Ciudad Juarez to leave entirely alone, which border checkpoint commander in Nogales to recommend for promotion through the Interior Ministry contact you placed there 7 months ago. You make 3 phone calls across 2 weeks, 1 personnel recommendation, 1 budget reallocation. The mechanism is a spreadsheet and a signature, not a weapon. Paper. The cash structure changes after this. No more construction invoices. The money flows through Elena's foundation now, 2 accounts she doesn't know exist, nested inside the legitimate ones, processed by a financial services firm in Monterey that handles the documentation. The foundation's books look clean. They are clean on the surface, and the surface is the only layer anyone is supposed to examine. You tell yourself you're not moving drugs. You're managing the conditions under which someone else moves them. You tell yourself the distinction matters. The difference between influence and ownership is who calls first. They have been calling first for months. The call comes on a Tuesday night. The fixer's voice is the same as always. Level, businesslike, no preamble. A reporter at a Monterey paper has been working a story for 4 months. Construction contracts, campaign financing, a paper trail connecting the Culiacan firm to the foundation. He has a source inside your office, a junior staffer who has been photographing documents. The fixer says the cartel wants it killed, not a request. The reporter's 34 years old. You look him up after the call. He has covered organized crime in Tamaulipas for 6 years. His wife is 8 months pregnant. He has written 40 stories in the last 2 years, most of them small, most of them accurate, most of them read by almost no one. This one would be read. You make 2 calls. In the first to the Attorney General's office, a man you recommended for his position, and you give him the staffer's name and the words classified budget materials, which is a charge that requires no evidence to initiate and months to disprove. The second call to the paper's owner, a man whose broadcasting license comes up for renewal in the spring. You don't threaten him directly. You mention the renewal, you wish him a good evening. The journalist is arrested 3 days later. The story is pulled before it runs. The staffer is gone within the week. A party colleague who had been asking pointed questions about the Nogales checkpoint appointments gets offered an ambassadorship in Angola and accepts it with visible relief. 6 months later, you send a condolence card to the journalist's family. His wife had delivered while he was in detention. You sign it with your full name and title. You choose a card with a landscape on the front, mountains, pale sky, nothing specific. You didn't hurt anyone. You made 2 calls. The calls are what hurt someone. By the 3rd year, you are not facilitating. You are operating. The cartel has a logistics problem at the port of Guaymas. 2 inspection teams are rotating on a schedule that creates a 6-hour window 3 times a week. Not enough. You spend 2 weeks restructuring the Port Authority's staffing protocol through a committee directive framed as an efficiency measure. The window becomes 14 hours, daily. Nobody at the port understands why the schedule changed. They implement it because the paperwork came from your office and your office controls their funding. A rival organization has been moving product through Tamaulipas using a chain that overlaps your territory in 2 counties. You redirect a federal anti-narcotics task force, one that reports through a ministry channel you influence, toward a specific set of warehouses in Reynosa. GPS coordinates provided. The task force makes 11 arrests. The rival chain collapses. The Interior Ministry sends your committee a letter of commendation for budget prioritization. You frame it. 3 senators who have been asking inconvenient questions in oversight hearings. Find their committee funding redirected, their key allies quietly moved, their procedural motions buried. None of them understand why. 2 of them stop asking. The 3rd transfers to a different committee voluntarily, which is cleaner than anything you arranged. You have 11 people across 4 agencies doing what you need because of what you know about them or what you've given them. You did not recruit any of them directly. That's how it works at this level. The structure recruits. You just maintain the structure. One night, you do the accounting. 3 years. An estimated 4,000 kilos moved through infrastructure you control. You haven't touched any of it, not once. Your hands are clean. Your signature isn't. The DEA advisory reaches Mexican federal police on a Wednesday. Your name is in it, or it's me, not as a suspect, as a subject of interest in an active investigation, which is the version that buys you slightly more time and means exactly the same thing. A cartel contact tells you before anyone in government does. That detail alone tells you how far the file has already traveled. The thread is Elena's foundation. A cooperating witness has been providing documentation to U.S. investigators for 14 months, financial records, account structures, transaction logs from the Monterey firm. Elena built the foundation with care. She raised money from real donors, ran genuine programs, believed in what it was supposed to be. The two nested accounts were invisible to her. They are not invisible anymore. She asks you once, Sunday morning, kitchen, turn the television on in the other room. She puts a printout on the table and asks what the foundation is. You lie, clearly without pause. She knows you're lying and you know she knows. The sentence between you is the size of everything you haven't said for 3 years. She is gone 2 weeks later. No note. She tells you directly, standing in the front doorway with her coat on, I know what the foundation is. I don't know who you are anymore. She takes the children. You don't argue because there is no argument available to you. A coordinator you've worked with for 2 years is arrested on a minor charge. Makes bail in 6 hours. You know what that means. You do the full accounting. 3 years. 11 compromised officials. $6 million in irregular flows through the foundation. A journalist in detention. A source no one is looking for. The office never protected you. You were protecting the office for them. 2 meetings, different buildings, different days. You are the product being traded in both. The first is in a law firm's conference room in Polanco. The cartel's legal representative is quiet, takes no notes, introduces himself by a first name only. You offer silence, permanent, documented through a third party, and the destruction of 3 sets of internal records that exist in your possession and nowhere else. In exchange, release from operational duties, no internal retaliation, no mention of your name in any proceeding the cartel can influence. He considers for a moment. He nods. There are conditions he doesn't enumerate. You understand them. The second meeting is with a federal prosecutor who wants the cartel's logistics network more than he wants a senator's scalp. You give him 2 mid-level coordinators by name. You give him the Guaymas port operation in enough structural detail to prosecute without implicating the officials who still need to stay quiet. And you give him the name of the cooperating witness inside the foundation, the woman who helped bury the journalist, Baobam Dirstein, and you hand her over without hesitation, because she is the thread that leads directly back to you and you are cutting it. You resign from the Senate citing health reasons. Your party issues a statement of gratitude. It takes them 4 hours to draft 2 sentences. The Mexico City House transfers. The one in Sonora, held under a third-party name for 6 years, stays. The fixer calls once from a number that won't exist tomorrow. He says he heard you were out. A pause that lasts just long enough. Then, be careful with careful. You hang up without answering. There is nothing to say that would mean anything to either of you now. You load what fits into the back of a car and drive south until the capital is gone from the mirror. You land in Merida. Small office, contract work, the kind of legal consulting that involves reading documents for businesses that don't need much. It pays. You rent a place near the center of the city where no one knows what Sonora means in the context of your name. The cartel's leadership changes twice in the following year. The men you worked with are arrested, promoted beyond your usefulness, or gone in the way that world disposes of people without announcement or record. 3 of the 11 officials you compromised are indicted. None of them name you. You don't know why, and that uncertainty is worse than being named, because it means the reason exists somewhere outside your control and always will. Elena remarries. You rate it in a social column, a brief item between a charity dinner and a restaurant opening. You put your phone face down on the desk and go back to the contract in front of you. You finish the page. A party contact invites you to a fundraiser. He doesn't know your history. You go. You stand at the edge of the room with a drink and listen to people talk about leverage and access and who owes whom, and you recognize every sentence. Not the words, the architecture underneath the words. The way a room organizes itself around need and supply and the performance of loyalty that isn't loyalty. You leave before dinner is served. The cartel doesn't run on violence. Violence is just the mechanism that closes gaps. It runs on the same thing every institution runs on. People who needed to matter and found a place that said they did. The price is paid in full by everyone who didn't get a seat at the table. A few weeks later, a news segment. A young municipal official in Sonora, maybe 30, accused of taking money from an organized crime group. He looks at the camera. He says he doesn't know what they're talking about. You turn off the television. That's a wrap. This story is fiction, but somewhere right now, a young official in a northern city is sitting across from a man in a sport coat telling himself he's just catching up. If this made you think, leave a comment. Subscribe for more. See you in the next one.